It's another week of Soccer's Morning Show. Soccer down here on a Monday. John here, Abe there. It's a no dilly, no dally zone. And that's why we came up on the two-shot, because Abe has to go schwitz and go look at the Atlanta Falcons, who already have injuries. And after one game, I mean, Abe, the Falcons, man, your thoughts about what happened after I say match. Wow. It shows you where my brain is. Game number one with the Atlanta Falcons. What am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to take too much away from it if we're being realistic, but the injuries are the one thing that will carry forward and move on. So you lose potentially a starting safety or a guy that was going to see the field quite a bit, a young promising pass rusher that's out for the season. So that's a tough go, but you also saw some good things, including the in-game debut, if you will, of quarterback Michael Penix. So not all is negative in this one.
So, all right. So Michael Penix, what'd you think?
I thought he was pretty good. I thought there's a couple things you can work on and improve. He overthrew a couple of balls, which may have just overcooked, just a little amped up. But other than that, I thought he's accurate. He makes smart decisions, and he'll build from it. So, yeah, it looked pretty good.
Okay, and traditionally when we talk football, that's the OSG sports side of things. When we talk college football, and that's for another search engine over on the other side of the family. But let's get into what's on our minds when it comes to soccer, because that's where we are. It's Soccer's Morning Show. The Olympics done. First off, did you see Tom Cruise do any rappelling or closing ceremonies or anything? Or you just kind of like, yeah, okay, it's the closing ceremonies and it's heading to LA. Yeah,
I know he was riding a motorcycle at some point. With an Olympic flag, so I saw he did some recorded something, but I'm just being honest. Like I was talking about it yesterday when I was hosting. Like I don't think I ever watched the closing ceremonies. Like I really don't. I watched the opening ceremonies. I watched the events all the way through until the very last gold medal was handed out at women's basketball. And I just don't watch the closing ceremonies. I don't know.
Just because it's a large party. I mean, literally it's a party and everybody's talking and having a hooping time, and it's just like filling space for 4 hours. So no, I completely and totally understand the idea of not watching an opening closing ceremonies. I mean, that's just kind of how things roll sometimes. You know, it's a closing ceremonies, and yeah, it's about a big party. But, you know, I'm kind of with you. It's just kind of like you get to see folks wander out and you get people holding flags. And so, I mean, opening ceremonies, I get. Closing ceremonies, you know.
I feel like they don't put as much thought and prepreparation into it as they do the opening ceremony. So, like, all the good stuff is going to come at the front end. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
No, I mean, I think that there's some merit there. It's like, yeah, it's a party and we'll just kind of ad-lib our way through it. Soccer, how much of Olympic soccer did you watch, knowing that you're having to juggle your football duties and 92.9 duties and everything? How much of the Olympic soccer tournament did you watch?
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the women's soccer tournament, when the U.S. were playing, I didn't miss any of their matches. I can't say that I watched too many other women's soccer matches that didn't include the U.S. I did watch a little bit of that. I think it was Brazil-Spain. But I watch a pretty fair amount of the men's, albeit a lot of times on mute, just because I had other sports I was watching at the same time. But I watched a pretty good amount of the men's. I stepped into a meeting on the day of the men's final with France up 3-1 in the 58th or 60th minute, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And then I step out and I see it's been equalized 3-3. And then I was able to watch stoppage time from there. So that was kind of a crazy result just because of it looked like it was in the bank and then it wasn't.
And so folks that were using their juice boxes and trying to see how they could help themselves with the tournament are realizing that Abe needs to either come out sooner from his meetings or stay in his meetings to find out what happened with all of this. Women's national team, they end up, going all the way, getting gold medal. What did you think about the women's efforts in the tournament?
Well, a couple of things jumped out to me, and the newly anointed trio up top, the triple espresso.
Yeah.
And they talk about it separately, but Emma Hayes talked about it. And then I also saw, I don't remember if it was Mallory Swanson or Sophia, but one of them talked about it as well. And what Emma Hayes has come in and done in 8 games, 10 games, whatever it is reignite the idea of fun back into it. And that seems to be a driving force for the offensive attack up top. And they're having fun, but they're also incredibly dangerous, and incredibly relentless. And even in a game, like in the final, where it's not just attack, there is quite a bit of defending, especially from Trinity Rodman as well. They found moments to be incredibly dangerous. And so it looks like it could be a fun little ride under Emma Hayes. And so I really look forward to it because, yes, I expected them to win, but they looked relatively comfortable and dominant as well. Alyssa Nowher and goal also. It's just like, all right, is it really okay to do what you can do on the front end and control the game through the midfield? You have one of the best defenders in the world in Germa, and then you just bring Nahar in there, and it's like, if you don't put this thing upper 90 it's like, if you have any chance for me to save this, I'm going to save it. And she obviously had an incredible kick save in that win against Germany and a couple of good ones against Brazil as well. So she's just a stone rock back there, which certainly lets the team have a little more fun, be a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, we'll catch up with Bart Keeler from the Soccer for US POD coming up in hour number 2 and go a little bit more in depth. But let me ask you this. More impactful for the United States in history, Hope Solo in net or Alyssa Nair in net?
Boy,
I got you on a Monday, didn't I?
Well, it's just like on the field, it's not a debate. It's not a debate between Hope Solo and Alyssa Nahar, in my opinion. Hope Solo was good, but I mean, these are game-making saves that stick with you. In terms of growing the sport, building the game, like I would actually go like the era before Hope Solo, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about like growing the game from that perspective, or like performance of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really go before Hope Solo, the Brianna Scurrys of the world. Maybe you have that discussion in terms of growing the game, but on-field performance, it's the current keep all the way.
Okay, because I know that we always kind of like to compare eras and things like that and figure out, okay, who's the best here. And I know that with this particular lineup, now that we're transitioning away from the U.S. women's national team with all of the big names, and you're getting the younger players now finally in and getting reps under Emma Hayes. Obviously, I think the future is very, very bright when it comes to the women's national team. I know that you have to shore some things up, with transitions of players and things like that. But I'm really looking forward now to what, if Emma Hayes can do this, and I'll put that's the wide-ranging this in quotation marks, with an Olympic tournament. Now you're giving Emma Hayes time after this to continue to chase after tournaments and get you ready for what is going to happen in a women's World Cup in 3 years' time. So she's got a runway. It's a hell of a start.
Yeah, and look, there are some young players that weren't even on this team that you already know are phenomenal. And you see it in the NWSL week in and week out. And the good news is you're not necessarily looking at, like in previous tournaments, it feels like over the last 5 or 6 years, you were always checking a box of, all right, this player's done after this tournament. That player's done after that tournament. You're going to lose 2 here after the World Cup. That time of transition that you spoke about with no Megan Rapinoe, with no Carly Lloyd, women like that. But now you're getting into a situation where you look like you might have the same extended team for a 6-year run, or over the course of an Olympics, a World Cup, and another Olympics, maybe over the course of 4 years, however the time may be. It doesn't seem like it's going to change a lot unless other players step in and surpass. And so, yeah, what you've done now after a couple of months and 10 games into an Olympic soccer champion and the potential moving forward, Look, women's soccer is very competitive, but it does feel like you could be entering another phase of like the U.S. are just going to win tournament after tournament. That's what we're all hoping for.
2 days left well, technically 3 if you include today. So 3 days left in the secondary transfer window for U.S. clubs in Major League Soccer, July 18 to Wednesday, August 14. And I know that we're later on in the show, we're going to get into the reports coming out about Atlanta United chasing players, first bids being turned down, those kinds of things. Where are you when it comes to what Atlanta United has done in the window, getting Alexei Miranchuk and the possibilities? Where are you when it comes to your monitoring? Are you just kind of sitting there and going, okay, if something happens, cool? Are you looking forward to something before the deadline in the midweek? Where are you right now when it comes to the rest of the transfer window?
I am where Garth Lagerwey has told me to be, and not intentionally. And it's not because he directed me. It's because I listen to what he says. And what he has been saying this whole time is we're going to try and rebuild this roster with these sorts of players. But he also said on this sort of timeline, and the timeline was not before this current transfer window close. It's over the next 3 windows. So at this point next year, this is where I think they're going to be as fully built as they are planned to become. So right now, I'm kind of in the mindset of, all right, I don't think they're going to bring in the other DP at this moment. I think they're going to move with the Miranchuk. They're going to see what else opens up around the world and try and maximize what they can do with that spot, but that money as well. And also see what turnover you have over the course of the season. For whatever reason, it always feels like MLS teams don't change that much. But if you look at it, most teams do have like 5 or 6 new starters every single season. I think it's going to be the same situation for Atlanta United. There obviously are some players that have not worked out or have regressed that you might look to maneuver away from. And so I kind of have heard him multiple times say over the next 3 transfer windows, and I keep that in mind, that they're not going to force a third DP in right now. Now, that doesn't mean that they stumble onto something and it happens, but they're not going to force it just to force it. And so I'm interested to see if they do bring anyone else in, what their thoughts are. But I'm kind of settled on, like, they'll bring in Miranchuk. They'll hope he adds a couple of things to the midfield, to the attack, see who benefits from it, and then kind of reassess after the season. And I do expect that with Miranchuk, this is a team that can make the playoffs. I know you've gotten that incredibly tough game against the Los Angeles Galaxy when you do get going in 12 days' time, but there are winnable games on that schedule. You are kind of right in the middle of being where you are in the playoffs. Obviously, you're not going to be safely in the playoffs, but you're going to be right there battling for it. So, a couple of results, a couple of draws, a couple of wins, and you can find yourself there. And then kind of like last year, man, anything can happen. You took the eventual champions to a third and deciding game. You were the only team to beat them in the playoffs last year. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm kind of expecting them to slow roll it. Miranchuk will come in, and hopefully he gets in quickly. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like that's going to be the extent of it. None of the other rumors seem to be catching on for me. I don't know why some of the previous ones, the Miranchuk rumor, obviously the Wiley transfer, the Almada, all of those I kind of like dialed in. It's like, all right, this feels real. It feels like I've seen some of the other reports, other rumors, and, offers being rejected and other players in the eyesights and all that. I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not buying in on those.
9 players, if my math is right, have their contracts ending at this calendar year. Brad, Dax, Jamal, Daniel Rios, Ronald Hernandez, Nick Firmino, Efren Morales, Tyler Wolf, and Jay Fortune. Those are your 24s. And there are some decisions to be made there without question. There are some folks that you sit there and go, okay, I know that we have to lock this individual down. But in those 9, there are some decisions that are going to have to be made.
Yeah, and I think it starts with what you're doing with your DP, right? I mean, if you bring in a full-in head of the snake striker, I don't know if you're keeping that many attackers. And on the flip side, if you bring in a winger as opposed to a guy, you probably are keeping Rios and TRA, and then you have to figure out what were you doing with guys like Tyler Wolf, but I also think there's a couple of names you didn't mention that could be moved as well. And that's the thing that's interesting to me. Guys that either have not produced, and look, we've complained about it all year, but there's issues on the left side. Who from there needs to go? I know you mentioned Tyler Wolf, but he's not one of the names I'm necessarily thrusting away. I mean, if I look at it from that perspective, a guy like Nick Firmino, who's just kind of hidden in terms of opportunity, if you think you can help him out and find him a better role elsewhere, maybe you do move on from him. But even that is like with good intention. It's not like we don't want this guy here anymore. It's just like, hey man, like we know you're trying to be a pro soccer player and it's not there for you here. Let's try and get you into what you want to be elsewhere. And I know a lot of teams don't operate that way, but sometimes you see those moments. So I mean, maybe in that realm, but I mean, that's a good list of players that all have a role here right now. But that role could change. The need, the depth could change with the addition of a DP. And it's kind of just, are they in the center or are they out wide? And what does that mean for the guys who are currently in center or out wide?
All right. So what's your plans for the next 7 days before we catch up again?
That is a good question. A lot of American football is probably up for grabs here. And, you know, I'm watching some of these little friendlies that are being played around the country here between some of the European squads. So that's been enjoyable. It's tough to get into just because I don't feel like they want it. They don't care. Kind of like
it's a TV program that you've got to be locked into.
Sure. It's their preseason football, and some guys are going after it and some guys aren't. I don't know. I mean, I kept waking up so early for the Olympics that it might not do me bad to go to bed early. The problem is the Braves are on the West Coast. So that kind of where I could be going to bed at like 8:00 if they had like some 4:05 games. I'll probably be in bed at like 1 a.m. watching them after a 10-10 start. So that's going to be a little rough.
Yep. Abe Gordon at 929 the game. As always, my friend, great to catch up with you as bat and leadoff on Mondays to get your thoughts across the world of football, while you're balancing American football and everything else. I appreciate you, my friend. We'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, next week we'll have a full and complete roster that shouldn't have too many adjustments, and we'll start gearing back up for the last 9 regular season games. So looking forward to it.
Abe Gordon, 929 the game, bat and leadoff with us here on a Reaction Monday. It's always great to catch up with Abe and find out what is in his mind. He mentioned transfers. So here's the rundown of the show this morning. We'll go through all of the news and get through the latest info that we have with names that have been tossed around, specifically Steven Bergwijn and Beal, just Beal, because there are multiple Beals out there. And this is the Bahia Beal that will have, we do have some update there. And once again, we don't know anything else. I don't know any other players doing the cursory Atlanta United search on the 280-character app before we came on this morning. There's the updates on Bergwijn, the updates on Beal. Have not seen anything else. There have been some other clubs in Major League Soccer that have made moves. We'll get into those. And we also have all of the news of the AM. There's stuff domestically in college. Big news out of North Carolina in the college ranks. We've got some stuff involving Premier League. That's the league I was trying to figure out. The news out of Premier League teams and the news of the morning. The Twos had a big win last night with the game against Toronto FC 2 up at the Fraction. The win streak is now at 3 as they are working their way up the ladder in the Eastern Conference. We've got highlights later this morning, probably closer to noon because it's, guests and things and doing a show. Once this is over, we'll edit the Twos review, and you will also get to hear on the app the conversation that we had with Daniel Russo. Daniel came by for halftime last night, caught up with Jarrett and Maddie, and we got his update about his recovery, and that'll be posted to the network as well. So if you don't have the Soccer Down Here app, go to our friends at Spreaker. That's like speaker with an R in the middle. And then you do the search for Soccer Down Here. You get to set your notifications, unless you're an OG and you actually might have the Soccer Down Here app still on your phone like I do. For some of the OGs, they still have the Soccer Down Here app. And so, but right now, the new version, go to Spreaker, speaker with an R in the middle. Go to Spreaker, search for Soccer Down Here, set your notifications, and then when something is new and up on the app, then you'll know. But a big win last night for the Twos. They hopscotch a couple of folks, and they're climbing. And I think they've got a couple of matches in hand on folks in front of them because of the 2-3 week layoffs that they had, which was very, very strange. But a match in hand with folks immediately ahead of them, and 2 matches in hand with folks who are 8th in the playoff picture. So there's some work that can be done, but most of it's going to have to be done on the road for Atlanta United. I think there's only 3 home matches left this year, and it's going to be work for them. But Two's review, you catch up with head coach Steve Cook, you caught up with Caden Moore, and you also get to catch up with Nick Firmino. So really cool last night to be up at the Fraction. The game's on the network, and you can go to our Mixler site, soccerdownhere.mixler.com, and you can listen to the match after the fact. And you can go here. You can listen to the match, and you can catch up with all the matches that we've had. If there was a high school match that you missed, you can go there. But that's the Mixler site. You can click on that. Once again, set your notifications. Download the Mixler app as well when we have a live event going on. And you can listen in and be one of the first ones in line to catch up that way. So all of our live programming, once again, you want to listen to it live, go to our Mixler site, soccerdownhere.mixler.com. You can catch up with things at soccerdownhere.net. You can catch up with things on the Soccer Down Here app through Spreaker. So all of those places are where you can catch up with everything SDH. So opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code. For those of you who are watching, however you are watching, you could do that on our YouTubes, on our Twitch, or on our 280-character app. And then what you do is you click on that QR code. It gets you to Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested in cool stuff that they have earmarked, youth games, youth initiatives, and stuff like that at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Putting my hand over our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps because we'll get to that QR code in just a sec. The Premier League is starting this weekend. The lower divisions, and if you follow Jessica Charman, you'll know that the lower divisions started this past weekend. And God bless Paramount Plus for having the EFL deal, because now I really am locked into Paramount Plus and the Golasso Network and all of the broadcasts, because I was locked in there watching all the lower division stuff this weekend. We actually have our first gotta go. One match in, and we actually have our first dismissal, parting of the ways, however you want to call it. And if you're a wrestling fan, Wade Barrett is less than pleased, and I think that he should be gathered for a soundbite on all of this about his beloved Preston North End. Ryan Lowe left the championship club by mutual consent today, earlier this morning. One match, new season. Ryan Lowe, gone from Preston North End. Lowe led the club to 13th, 12th, and 10th in the second tier during his 3 seasons in charge, but they lost their championship opener 2-0 at home to Sheffield United on Friday. And after discussions with the board yesterday, he's out. Mike Marsh, Peter Murphy, Chet Evans set to temporarily take charge of the team for this week's matches against Sunderland and Swansea. So you're already into schedule compression in the championship, which is beyond crazy to begin with anyway. But it was intriguing, to say the very least, that after one match and one match only, you already have a dismissal in the lower divisions. And let me see if I can do this real quick. In England. That's close. As Jason does that far better than I do, but I figured since that was where the story was, I figured, try to get that a little closer to where we are. But yeah, one match in the championship in England, and we already have a coach that is gone. And he was in the mid-table for 3 seasons, but you lose right out of the blocks to Sheffield United, who were relegated. after one of the worst seasons you could have in the Premier League and Premier League history. So that you lose to them 2-0, which I wouldn't anticipate to be any kind of an earth-shattering kind of a thing. But meetings on Sunday, one match in, you lose 2-0, you're like, yeah, we probably need to split. P&E is going to have an interesting season. Already they do. But now where do you go? All of these matchups that are left, I think 45 matchups are left. I think it's 40. Yeah, home and away, 24, 23, 20. 45 matches to go in the championship. And you've already got a coach that's out the door. Whew. That's opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, on the 280-character app, or on our YouTube channel. And what you do is you click that QR code, you go to Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, and you use the code soccer down here 15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Now to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. And once again, over 30 years of experience in the nursing profession. If this is a direction that you are looking to go with your career, hit this QR code from our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Your next nursing job waiting for you. Hit that QR code, and then when they ask, how'd you hear about us? You say SDH. So thanks to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Thanks to our friends at Kickoff Coffee. Thanks to our friends at Kaiser Permanente, all the sponsors that we have here at SDH that make us, give us the opportunity to go out and do all the things that we do on a daily basis. And thanks to all of y'all for being with us on a daily basis. But Alliance Nurse Corps, Kaiser Permanente, Kickoff Coffee, that's what gets us rolling here in the morning. But we've already had our first goodbye on the year. Speaking of goodbyes, I know that a couple of pieces of news kind of drifted through the weekend, and we'll catch up on that. The pictures of Caleb Wiley wearing the Strasbourg jersey are now officially official, as Caleb has now been loaned out, and this was anticipated. Caleb's loan to Strasbourg was anticipated, so it is through the 25 season, and the club to follow at RCSA_English. That's Strasbourg, Alsace. That is the Racing Club de Strasbourg, Alsace English site. So at RCSA_English, unless you want to read it in Dutch, and or if you just want to read it in French. But they have 3 separate accounts. You can follow Racing Club de Strasbourg, Alsace. Pictures came out this weekend. Caleb Wiley loaned for the 24-25 season. So this year, Caleb's getting loaned to Strasbourg, officially official. And they have put out, let's see, the English website. So let's see. They actually admitted, the club actually admitted, okay, you can stop checking your phones, because they did have a boatload of Caleb Wiley photographs that were posted. 2, 3, technically 4, 5. Okay, 5. So Strasbourg posted 5 different Caleb Wiley pictures from inside their stadium to sit there and solidify the fact that the loan did take place. So Caleb's there on loan for the 24-25 season, and that'll be the next step in his career. We're thinking about some things. So, so Caleb Wiley is officially official for Strasbourg on the loan from Chelsea for the 24-25 season. There have been a couple of names that have been tossed around here. Once again, we talked to Abe about the transfer window, and we have until Wednesday if something is going to happen. Like I said, we'll get into the other transactions that other clubs have made in Major League Soccer in just a little bit. But the deal with the players that have been mentioned so far, Steven Bergwijn obviously was mentioned, and there are, I don't know how do I phrase this, websites that have their sole purpose to report on a club. Headline about Steven Bergwijn. Ajax expects Bergwijn to leave. Club has already lined up possible replacements. So Ajax has been less than pleased with Steven Bergwijn. Has a contract until the middle of 2027. Ajax is assuming, according to some reports, that Bergwijn will be leaving this summer. Alex Kroes, the technical director, has already been lining up replacements. But here's the situation with Ajax, just for context. That Ajax would want to sell Bergwijn, not a shock. Give them room to maneuver in the transfer market. They have to sell so they can bring players in and bring in more money. They can't just sit there and bring in players first. They have to sell first, get that revenue, and then move it on to bring in other players at Ajax. So Ajax is a seller. They are a seller in the marketplace. So right now, and there's no other update from Leicester either, but according to reports, Ajax has to cut back 35% in salaries. They've got to trim their budgets. So they are a seller in the marketplace. Bergwijn, one of the biggest earners at Ajax, so his sale can give him space. Once again, the Bergwijn number was 15 million euro from the Ajax side of reports. For Bergwijn, Leicester apparently ready to pay more than 20 million. But once again, we don't know what we don't know when it comes to any possible future rounds of negotiations or trying to bring in players, specifically Bergwijn. This was the end of the discussion last week before we all went on our weekends and we all did our things. So Atlanta United kicked the tires accordingly, apparently, to 15 million euro on Steven Bergwijn. Leicester allegedly prepared to pay more than 20. Bergwijn transferred from Spurs to Ajax in the summer of 22, so 2 years ago, for 31.25 million euro, 31.25 million euro. Hat trick in his third official match. Summer of 23, Bergwijn was appointed captain. Second season didn't do well. And folks have not been impressed with Steven Bergwijn after his hot start. So if something happens in the next couple of windows, once again, the last numbers we had, Atlanta United was at 15 million euro. Leicester apparently ready to prepare to pay 20. Ajax is losing money on this deal. But they want to bring in fresh talent. They got to sell. So even if Atlanta United does not end up getting a Steven Bergwijn, or the Steven Bergwijn in this case, once again, if you follow Ajax and you follow soccer over there, Ajax is a seller. Bergwijn will be sold at a loss. They've got a trim salary, and so they've got to get rid of the high-priced talent that they have. And so Bergwijn right there is at the top of their list. The other name that was mentioned late last week for Atlanta United was Beal. Literally, that's it. Beal. I mean, it's not like, Jessica Biel. It's not like other, it literally is just Beal. That's it. Contract expires at the end of 2028. Transfermarkt has his current value at its highest point, 4 million euro. Right now at Bahia, primarily a left winger. Right winger and a second striker is where he has also done duty. But he went from Fluminense to Grêmio on a loan, loaned back, and then moved for 1.6 million euro in 2023 from Fluminense to Bahia, and that's where he is right now in the Brazilian league. 20 matches in the Serie A, 4 goals, 4 assists, 42 matches played across all divisions in his career, 5 goals, 10 assists. So right now, and he's an April Fool's baby, born in 2001. So he's 23, primarily a left winger. The word was, from Gabriel Gomez and others, Kahemota as well, that Atlanta United came to the table for Beal not once or twice, but 3 times, trying to bring Beal from Brazil to the United States. Below the amounts that the Brazilians wanted. 4 million euro by Transfermarkt, and Atlanta United apparently came to the table 3 times. The last offer was for 8 million. Twice his value. And Bahia said no. Pachuca is also dialing up Bahia and asking about Beal. Made contact, and Atlanta in turn 3 formal offers to executive director Cadu Santoro, and this is from our friends at Globo, and they're one of the big dogs down in Brazil. All rejected by Bahia, which considers the amounts low and does not intend to lose players for the decisive stretch of the Brasileiro and the Copa do Brasil. 41 matches played, 5 goals, 10 assists. And then there was an interview that came out with Beal. Let me see if I can find it here. From Bahia Noticia. So it is a local tied reporter, however you want to phrase it, website. Bahia Esportes, Bahia Noticias, and it's a Brazil site. And so yesterday, there was a discussion with Beal in the mix zone. On the field after Everton Ribeiro's departure, Beal spoke to the press in the mix zone after their 2-0 win over Vitória yesterday. Striker analyzed the return to winning, spoke about the proposal he received from Atlanta United. Quote, "It's always great to win again. We had a really good week after the win against Botafogo." Irony alert. "We won. That's what matters. In the second half, we left a bit to be desired, fell way behind, but now we have the whole week to win it again and keep winning." Beal thanked the American team for their investment, but said he preferred to stay in the squad. So if you put 1 and 1 together, it looks like Bahia, at least on the surface, knowing what we're about to discuss, quote, "Man, I'm really happy with the offer. I think my work individually is flowing, but I always told Cadu Santoro, the Bahia sporting director, that I'm doing really well at Bahia. The club loves me and the fans support me too, and that was one of the reasons I stayed. I have a growing daughter, and moving to another country now wouldn't be good for me. And I told Cadu that I wanted to stay. He gave me the confidence to stay. Grupo City supports me, believes in me, so I preferred to stay here." And that was what Beal said in the mix zone yesterday after the win that they had against Vitória. So Bahia goes a month without winning. They get a win yesterday or over the weekend against Vitória. And so after Botafogo and Vitória, they now have a lot of confidence. But apparently, according to Beal in the mix zone yesterday, it might have been a situation where Bahia wanted to put a price tag on him to where you would sit there and you're going, you want to outprice the market. You want to put that price tag so high by comparison that anyone who's interested is kind of like, they kind of turn their nose up and go away. But now we have more of the details, at least from Beal. Like I said, that's just Beal, as to why he would not be coming to Major League Soccer A or possibly to Pachuca B, because he has a growing daughter and wants to stay rooted where he is. Totally get that. So let's see if this stays the way it does. Does a club come in at some point and give you the offer that Bahia can't refuse? Although Atlanta United apparently coming in at 8 million with a Transfermarkt value of 4 million euro. You know, you're paying above the the alleged market value for Beal, and that would have given you someone on the left-hand side for a little variety. But Beal, with a growing daughter and a young daughter, basically was like, I want to stay rooted with my family here. And we'll see once again how that plays out as we go. So Beal apparently staying at Bahia in Brazil. Bergwijn on the market. But right now, once again, we don't know what we don't know. Did Atlanta United, or is Atlanta United chasing after the $15 million bid that they gave for Bergwijn, with Leicester allegedly wanting to offer 20, knowing Ajax is going to be taking a bath on this financially, considering that they spent 31 and a quarter, and they will be getting Steven Bergwijn at a loss. But they want to kind of minimize that as much as possible, knowing that they've got to cut their books by 35%. So you look at Ajax, and we do this live. And so Ajax Amsterdam in the Eredivisie has a total market value of 254 million euro with their players. Man. Okay, so they've got to cut 35% of that budget. They got to cut 35% of the budget, and you look at, like I said, I'm going down an Ajax rabbit hole here just because that number of 35% is somewhat of a stunning number. So anyone that comes walking in the door, let's check market values here. Market values of where is Steven Bergwijn? Steven Berghaus. There's Berghaus. Bergwijn. Okay. Bergwijn's value right now currently is 18 million euro. Under contract through 27. They need to flip this. So let me hit the arrow real quick and flip the numbers. But Steven Bergwijn right now brought in at 31 and a quarter and only worth 18. So if you look at market value, take that for what it's worth. Leicester a little above market value, Atlanta United in the ballpark. They have, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 players of 10 million euro or more. Chuba Akpom, who was picked up from the lower divisions in England, one of the bigger names. But yeah, Steven Bergwijn. Right now, listed as team captain, under contract through 27, market value of 18 million when they paid 31 and a quarter. So they're trying to get as much value back as humanly possible. 9 players with value in double digits. Ajax just in general will be a club that will be worth watching because of the budget cuts that they need to make. So we'll see what Ajax has in mind as we go forward. But once again, we don't know what we don't know. Most of the time, we don't know names until they're brought out by the other side of the equation. It's the sought after players are the ones that win that side of the club interest from the players' home market and the players' home interests. When those reports come this way, then we find out. You don't find out much from Atlanta United when it comes to negotiations, and you don't want to. You don't want to do that. You don't want to sit there and say, well, yeah, we'll pay this, we'll pay this, we'll pay this. You don't want to do that in the open marketplace. Everything held close to the vest. So like I said, we don't know what we don't know, and we still got until the middle of the week to see if Atlanta United makes a move in this window. Do they stand pat, or do they tweak? Well, we'll find out. But just because you have that money in your pocket burning a hole in it doesn't mean that you need to spend it. So that's where Atlanta United is. A couple of other transactions in Major League Soccer that came across the table. And there were a couple of interesting ones. Now, we'd mentioned that back on Friday that MLS had terminated the contract of Aaron Bupenza. So FC Cincinnati doing what they're doing fairly well without him. And so contract terminated. RSL acquired Diogo Gonçalves from FC Copenhagen. That news came across. A couple of other moves. CF Montreal acquired Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy from Toronto. And this one I found interesting. Up to $1.3 million in GAM and Garber bucks, plus a sell-on fee from Toronto FC to CF Montreal. 850 in guaranteed GAM split across this season and next. Toronto could get another $400,000 in conditional GAM and retain a sell-on fee of Marshall-Ruddy's next transfer. Marshall-Ruddy signs a contract extension through Montreal through the 27 season, along with a club option for 28. He was their youngest ever signing at the age of 15. 2021 at age 16. Now, Toronto coach John Herdman made him the youngest ever call-up in Canadian men's national team history. So, Marshall-Ruddy, after Caden Clark comes in from Minnesota United, that one kind of flew below the radar as well. Caden Clark comes in from Minnesota United. Now you've got Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy coming in from Toronto FC. Raheem Edwards and Huon joined in the offseason. But this was an interesting one. Up to $1.3 million in Garber bucks, plus a sell-on fee for Toronto as Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy goes from Toronto to Montreal. Looking for offense, you might get it. And then NYCFC loaned Tallis Magno to Corinthians. You sit there and you're like, man, Tallis Magno, he could have been. You look at him as someone in Major League Soccer in the right environment. Loan Tallis Magno to Corinthians through June of next year. Corinthians have an option to extend the loan until the end of the calendar year in 25. And Tallis Magno signed a contract extension through December 27, signed as a young DP 3 years ago. Helped to win MLS Cup, 19 goals, 101 matches. Nick Cushing really hadn't used Tallis Magno all that much. Just 3 league matches, no starts. So now your wingers for NYCFC, Hannes Wolf, Agustin Ojeda, and Julian Fernandez, Santi Rodriguez can also play wide or the 10, but you've loaned Tallis Magno out. So you've got that going on with Tallis Magno. And so Tallis Magno's out the door. Then a couple of other pieces of news involving possible moves. Stade Rennes has agreed to a fee with RSL for Colombian winger Andres Gomez. And that was first reported by sources out in RSL at El Show RSL. Agreement in the ballpark of $11 million plus $2 million in add-ons. And Gomez is having a great season. 13 goals, 9 assists, and 23 appearances. So Stade Rennes came knocking on the door, and they're like, hey, we'd like Andres Gomez, and it looks like it's going to be a great piece of business for RSL, $11 million plus possibly another $2 million in add-ons to pick up Andres Gomez. And so Diogo Gonçalves in from Copenhagen, and then Andres Gomez out. So you wonder, winger out, Gonçalves in. And so they firmly believe, Kurt Schmidt told Tom Bogert, you have to strike while the iron's hot. And so you end up with Diogo Gonçalves coming in with a transfer of about $3 million. You're in the process of flipping Andres Gomez for 3 times that, if not 4 with add-ons. So once again, Gonçalves in from Copenhagen for about 3. Gomez possibly out for 11 plus 2. Big piece of work. So Diogo Gonçalves from Copenhagen Kurt Schmidt told Bogert, no guarantees, only one team happy at the end of the year. So if you want to be that one team, you have to strike while the iron's hot. 11 goals, 6 assists in 2,500 minutes last season. 21 goals, 8 assists, and 57 appearances across all comps for FC Copenhagen. 98 appearances for Benfica before moving to Copenhagen, former Portugal Youth International. Won a title with Benfica and one for Copenhagen. Schmidt likes his football IQ. Game model has been less free and more specific than it has been in the past. And Diego has the ability to understand different roles. So Chicho Arango, Diego Luna, adding Gonzalez, Andres Gomez possibly being sold. So we'll see what happens with RSL going forward. Orlando is trying to chase after a Norwegian international, Heine Gikling Bruseth from Kristiansund, youth international midfielder, 20 years old, 37 appearances, but it looks like that one has fallen through. And interesting piece of news, the Galaxy might cash in on a Barcelona transfer if Julian Araujo ends up going to Bournemouth. Deal could land in the region of $11 million. The original transfer, you'll remember, Araujo to Barca. Barca paid $4 million, but the deal included the significant sell-on clause. Galaxy might end up getting a couple of million off of that if Araujo ends up going to Bournemouth. And remember, Bournemouth's got some money in their pocket to burn because of the Dominic Solanke move to Spurs. So once again, a couple of pieces working their way through and through and through. Then Fabrizio Romano reported that up I-85, there was an interesting move that was placed yesterday or over the weekend. And when Fabrizio Romano is the one that is dropping the knowledge on moves that are happening attached to Major League Soccer, it looks like Charlotte might be dropping $8 million to bring in some offense. And obviously Fabrizio Romano, a very, very busy man. And I'm having to scan to go back down to the article and figure out, I want to get the specifics right before Bart comes in and we have the discussion about everything that goes on with the national team. We'll have those discussions coming up in just a little bit. So Calvin Stings, it looks like an $8 million transfer. Stings to Charlotte. And so keeping an eye on that. So on the night that Feyenoord needed him, it was revealed that Calvin Stings will continue his career at Charlotte FC. And the question is, why? Why is the cup winner letting one of their better players go? And so, once again, translated from our friends at VI in the Netherlands, Charlotte FC prepared to pay €8 million for Stings, an amount that could rise to 10, and Feyenoord agreed. Now it's up to the player. If he says yes, he's gone, and the chance of that is big, according to VI. He'll still visit the club in the city, but no one doubts that Stings will continue his career in Major League Soccer. And so, of course, then you go behind a paywall, which we are not going to do. So Calvin Stings, Lazio in conversations, Charlotte front office. So it looks like Stings, according to Carol Walton, finalizing a deal to bring the 25-year-old attacking midfielder in on a 4-year deal, $8 million transfer fee. Carol says the deal is very close and it's big. Booked medical tests for Calvin Stings on Monday in London. I don't know if that's a halfway point, because if a halfway point might be in the middle of the Atlantic. So medical in London, supposed to be today. Deal completed allegedly tomorrow, according to Fabrizio Romano. 4-year contract, $8 million to Feyenoord from MLS side Charlotte. So that's where we are. That's it for hour number 1. And what that means is in hour number 2, we start things off. Now we have to ask. I've got to ask now. Is Bart on his second cup of coffee?
Yes, I am, John. Yes, I am.
Nicely done. Okay. So what's the mug? We have to ask what the mug is.
We got the Arsenal mug this morning because we have Premier League starting this weekend.
Yes, we do. And so how optimistic are you, sir, about your Gooner Gunners?
As optimistic as I was last year, which means I think that second place is solidly ours. Look, unlike Canada, when they cheat, they can't win anything.
Don't make me laugh.
Manchester City cheats, not only cheats, gets away with it, and still wins.
Oh, man. Oh, you see, you got me all laughing all of a sudden, and you can't do that right now. Man's on medication, so he can't, so he doesn't cough on the air. And so what do? You make me laugh. So
I can't promise that I won't do that the rest of the segment, John.
I know. All right. So I know that I wanted to start discussing a lot with the women's national team, and I want to kind of go through a lot of different things with it. But can Emma Hayes' impact be overstated, or are we still underselling what Emma Hayes was able to do in a very short period of time?
I think I'm going to go to both extremes on this.
Sure.
The first is that Emma came in and provided a better framework for these astounding athletes to play in. She revitalized the confidence this team should have, this team needs to have in order to win. And I think that in itself is what ended up making this team so successful. On the flip side, this team has been talented all along. The talent on this team has never not been there, despite what some people say. And we'll talk about that when we get there, because I have a rant prepared for these people who tried to kill us off left.
Man's got a rant. Look out. That's what Mondays are for.
But this team has always had talent. This team has always had world-class potential. And a lot of that also comes down to the players for believing in themselves, for finding in themselves the greatness that they've always had and being able to execute. So it's a lot on Emma, but I think to put it squarely on Emma negates the greatness these players have within them and all the hard put into making themselves phenomenal soccer players and true champions.
You want to go ahead and do your rant?
John, the reports of our death were greatly overstated.
Greatly exaggerated.
The rumors of our demise were false, to be quite honest. There were people telling us that the world had caught up, people telling us that our league was trash, people telling us that the U.S. wasn't producing enough talent to win at the international level. And let me just say, those people are clowns, John. They are clowns because they don't have a gold medal after this. You know, we do. We have the gold medal. They're still trying to say that, oh, well, NWSL actually isn't that good. And, you know, the U.S. only won 1-0 in all three of their knockout games. You know what you did not do? You didn't win a gold medal. So you need to sit down, close your mouth, and recognize that the U.S. women's national team has been, is, and will continue to be the standard bearers for this sport. And without the women's soccer team, the U.S. women's soccer team, most of these women who in other countries are enjoying great success, higher pay, better infrastructure, better facilities. It's not possible without the U.S. women's national team. And y'all wanted to write us off. You wanted to write off this program for being washed. Why? Because of one bad tournament. Well, Spain had a terrible tournament by their standards. They didn't even medal. They looked bad in the group stage. No one's writing them off. They just want to see us fail because they cannot accept that the U.S. is actually good at this darn sport. And they don't want to admit that the U.S. can play with talent that involves not just technical skill, but athletic ability. And they don't want to have that in their brain. I don't want to just look at the Europeans because I think it's a lot on them, but everywhere else in the world trying to knock us down, saying, oh, well, you know, the world's caught up. You're never going to win another international tournament. You are wrong. And you look foolish. And they're not apologizing because they're too proud for that, because they're darn Europeans who think they've invented every single thing that this planet has ever given us. So sit down, close your mouth, and show some damn respect to the greatest team in the universe.
Oh man, no doubt.
Fired up this morning, John. We got a gold. We got our 5th gold medal. 5th gold medal.
Yep.
5.
5. One more than 4.
5.
On the way to
no
6.
other team has done it more than once, John. I mean, Canada, Germany, and Norway. They got 1. They got 1.
Yes. So and
Singular.
one is on the way to 5, but you got to add another couple.
You have to add 4 more. And on top of that, we've only not medaled at these games 1 time. So that's the thing. It's like 2016. Okay, you had a bad tournament. You know what you did in 2019? You won the World Cup. 2023, you had a bad tournament. You know what you did? You won gold in 2024. This is what this team does. They win. And to go back, that is something Emma brought in. She brought in the culture of winning that these girls needed to remind them of their greatness, because they are great and they have the talent to win.
I mean, the post-match presser where she's sitting with Lindsey Horan, and Lindsey Horan just becomes emotional listening to what Emma Hayes has to say about the whole process. I mean, that's to have that kind of impact early. That says something. I mean, and Emma's interview with Mike Tirico, where she is starting to break down about what America has given to her. All of these full circle moments coming together through interviews and press conferences and what have you, I think it opens a bit of a window as to what you've seen in a very short period of time.
And I think, again, it's important to recognize the impact Emma had on this team. But I think Emma, I feel like she just felt like this is the job for her, right? Because what she did at Chelsea was fantastic. She built from scratch a program that is now, the beacon of that country in that league. And by the way, I will say, like, the Women's Super League in England is, for my money, the 2nd most competitive league in the world. I mean, you look at the amount of money that these clubs are actually investing in their women's sides. They have multiple teams that on a weekend I said multiple, like, because Tottenham, Liverpool, they're starting to put in money. Villa, they're starting to get it. They're not quite on our level, but she did her job at Chelsea and in England, but now she saw this as an opportunity, not just to make $1.5 million a year, but to also resurrect a program that was at its lowest point. I mean, I think it's fair to say that this program, after the 2023 debacle, was at a very low point. But I think, again, the frustrating part, and if you listen to the Soccer for Us pod, if you listen to me talk here, if you listen to anyone talk, we saw the talent. These girls are talented. And mind you, we still didn't have our best selection. Like, Katerina Macario was missing this tournament. Like, there's still talent to be found in the U.S. And the fact that Emma recognizes that, but saw that the mentality needed to be reforged, is, I think, her greatest accomplishment during the feels like she's not even been around for, I think it's 10 games now she's been around. She finally hit 10 in the gold medal match. So 2 handfuls of games she's been around, and we're already at heights that this was a phenomenal tournament. Beating Germany twice, which I don't think anyone wants to talk about that for some reason, but you beat Germany, who, by the way, gets a bronze medal on their way to kind of resurrect. It took them getting an NWSL goalkeeper to get back to that level. But it was a masterclass of motivation, of team building by Emma, and then a masterclass of talent on the field by the women. And I think if you talk about one or the other, you're not understanding what it takes to build a champion.
And in the sport of soccer, last time I checked, you have to put the ball in the back of the net.
That is generally how you win. Yes, John.
Okay. So if you have
unless you're Atlanta, then you also let the net a lot.
Unless you have an individual who stands in front of the device that you are supposed to put the ball into to have offensive success.
Yep.
And there's an individual who has that particular occupation for the U.S. women's national team. And by all indications, she's pretty damn good at her job. Where would you put Alyssa Nair when it comes to the pantheon of the discussions of goalies, not just where the U.S. women's national team is concerned, but I guess we'll go ahead and open it up to this solar system or any other solar system that we're talking about. I can't think of a goalkeeper that has been on as solid, spectacular, whatever adjective you want to use, a solid run of form that we've seen from Alyssa Nair. And it's outright obscene at times what we see from her when it comes to her ability to keep the U.S. in matches. She goes full-blown starfish to make a big save in the tournament. Yeah. And, it's insane to see what Alyssa Nair is capable of doing. And her teammates finally got her to smile after a tournament. I mean, it's like, what the hell's the world coming to now?
Well, I mean, look, you have to first start with the fact that Alyssa Nair is the first woman to record a shutout in both an Olympic and World Cup final. And I think that is where you just kind of have to start with the narrative, because I think it's very true that Alyssa has been part of some truly great teams. It's really hard to compare eras because, first off, I think when you go back to the OGs with Brianna Scurry, who has a gold and a World Cup, by the way, as does Hope Solo. So all of these keepers that we're going to talk about have achieved some pretty darn good accomplishments. But I think Alyssa is doing it, one, as the most doubted number one the U.S. women have ever had, right? I think everyone knew that Bri was the number one, and then, Hope Solo took over in 2007, and despite Greg Ryan deciding to be stupid for a match, Hope Solo was the number one. I still can't get over that. I want to talk about one of the dumbest things that a man's ever done. But I think what you're seeing now is Alyssa Nair is doing this in an era where, and this is the truth of the matter, is the world has elevated its game and there's more contenders than ever before. But Alyssa Nair kept 3 shutouts in a row en route to a gold medal against Japan, Germany, and Brazil. 3 teams, especially, Germany and Japan, World Cup winners. Brazil, perennially a great and attack-minded team. Those things, again, can't be lost. This woman has pitched shutout after shutout after shutout in big-time moments. And then I think when you just think of the Alyssa Nair career, it's the big moments. You think about 2019, the PK save against England in the semifinal. You think this tournament, the starfish save against Germany, you had 2 big saves against Brazil this match. You even think to some of the lesser tournaments, talking about, getting 3 saves and a penalty kick make and a gold cup. And by the way, doing it last summer at the World Cup as well. Those moments, to me, give her more notoriety than Solo and Scurry. But she's also, I think what does it for me is she's had to face more big moments. When you think of Scurry, you think of the 99 World Cup, the penalty shootout to win it, right?
Yep.
But let's be real honest. The tournament up to that point was not exactly contentious for the 99ers. And that's just the reality. It wasn't, China was obviously the team you're going to have to face and beat, and you did. For Hope Solo, 2003, 7, and 11, specifically 7 and 11, it was a little disappointing for her specifically. But again, the amount of moments she had to face outside of the final weren't really that numerous. So when you look at Alyssa Nair and how she's had big moments in every tournament she's played in, how she's had big moments that helped her team win just about every tournament she's played in, I think those things you have to really look at and go, this woman has accomplished something that others before her haven't. Not saying that Hope or Bri couldn't do that, because we don't know. They weren't facing the same level of competition game in and game out. But the fact that Liz has been able to do it in these tournaments against stiff competition, to me, says a lot about her and her what should be her narrative and her story.
So a moment like this.
And now she takes third. Still can't believe her tipping onto the post in the World Cup knocked them out. A chance for redemption. Nair into the bottom corner. This is the Alyssa Nair game.
Oh my goodness. Saves two, steps up. Last second opens up their hips, slots it into the far corner. What a penalty kick that is.
So that moment, and maybe this one.
This could end it. Jessie Fleming, the Canada captain, taking on the responsibility of leading this new era in the women's national side. With the game at her feet. Save for a third time by Nair! She saved three. She converted one. Alyssa Nair has almost single-handedly sent the United States into the Women's Gold Cup final.
So stuff like that? Is that
stuff like that, John? Stuff like that. And again, I just think that when you think about her career, she just has more big moments. Now, don't get me wrong. Hope Solo has some big moments. I mean, 2011 specifically, you go and you beat Brazil in a penalty kick shootout, mainly because of her heroics as well. But yeah, I have to just give Alyssa Nair so much credit because she's doing it against stiffer competition, game in and game out, and she's been able to come up with those big moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been fun for those of us who get to cover her on a daily basis. And you just kind of, I don't know if not being surprised anymore with stuff that we see. It's like, yeah, okay, that fits, everything. Yeah. You see something and the incredible almost becomes normal and accepted right now with Alyssa Nair.
I mean, I think that again goes to the testament of how good she's been and how reliable she is. Her teammates don't have any doubt in her. I think a lot of the fans might, but her teammates clearly don't. And she's proven time and time again why she deserves to have the faith and trust. I know specifically I've been saying we need to move on from her for a while, and that's nothing against her. It's because of looking at her age and wondering if she can be there for 2027. But Casey Murphy hasn't done anything to prove that she belongs there yet. No offense to Casey. She's been good, but hasn't shown that. That said, Alyssa never really showed that until she got her chance. And I think that's something that I will give credit to Vlatko a little bit is he allowed Casey to play more frequently. If you remember, I think one of the reasons why Alyssa Nair was so not untrusted, but we were skeptical of her is because Hope Solo played just about every damn match from that 2007 World Cup until she was cast off in 2016. I mean, she had a good decade of being the number one, and Liz didn't play. She didn't. I mean, she got her first cap in 2014, but she didn't hit double-digit caps in a year until 2017, and that was again right after Hope Solo had whatever you want to say. She was dismissed from the team in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So again, I think when you look at it, it just was a matter of we weren't sure because we had this great keeper in Hope Solo who also, by the way, a very different person from Alyssa Nair. Mm-hmm. Hope Solo will tell you that she's great.
Yes.
Alyssa Nair will credit her teammates. And I'm not saying either one is wrong. I'm just saying they're different, So I think that is something to note too, is that Hope Solo's personality played into her aura, but also the fact that she was the starter for so long, and then we got Alyssa Nair and we were like, how does this translate? She's done phenomenally. I mean, again, 2019, you get a Women's World Cup, you get a shutout in the final. 2023, none of the problems. That was not an Alyssa Nair issue, right? I mean, you got to remember, Alyssa Nair conceded one goal the whole damn tournament. And that was an unsavable shot against Netherlands. And that's impressive. She got shutouts against Vietnam, Portugal, and Sweden. We still, people don't want to admit it, we didn't lose in 2023. We may have been knocked out in a penalty kick shootout, but we didn't lose, and Nair still saved penalty kicks in that. And to this day, you can't convince her she didn't save that one that they said was over the line. Technology, what it is. So it's hard to compare eras, but I think you just have to understand Alyssa Nair has had more big moments because she's faced more big moments, and she's come up on the good end of those more often than not.
Naomi Girma obviously reinforced the fact that she is the Secretary of Defense, and to get high praise instantly in a tournament from your coach, that, once again, not necessarily a surprise, but we had some behaviors and some thought patterns reinforced with this women's national team as well, not just on the back line, but all the way through.
Girma is, I think Emma Hayes said it best. She's the best defender she's ever seen. I think she's the best center back I've seen in the women's game. And I mean that sincerely. But she's also filling in for a long line of outstanding center backs on the women's national team, from, Sauerbrunn, who she in theory replaced, to then to even going back to Joy Fawcett in the days of, Carla Overbeck as well. We've had some phenomenal defenders in this program, but Girma has taken all of her athleticism, all of her on-field smarts, combine it with the just gracefulness that she plays with, and use that to create a center back. Even with Davidson, who played really well, you were talking about Girma. And she's clearly a leader on the field. She's still very young, but she's the vice captain for a reason. She's vocal, but she seems to be also able to control and lead herself well as her teammates. And that, to me, is where the U.S. looking forward is in such great hands with Naomi Girma, not just as a great defender, but as a leader on this team.
Who else, other than Triple Espresso or the Trident or whatever nickname you want to give it, who else for you in this tournament reinforced a thought pattern going in that coming out, we were like, yep, okay, so this is a consistent thought pattern from those of us that cover, not the reactionary good, bad, oh my God, you suck, no, you're great, you suck.
Oh, yeah. I got to be honest, I don't know if there was anyone who reinforced anything other than Girma and Triple Espresso. And I think, I think maybe Emily Fox reinforced that she's a really good defender. Don't expect her to contribute much to the attack.
Mm-hmm.
I think Coffee reinforced that she is good at certain things. I still think it's fair that the U.S. does not have that Julie Ertz replacement. Granted, Julie Ertz is one of one, so yes. I get it. But I think that's the thing that gives me the most hope going forward, is there's still ways for this team to improve. And you look at the Trident of Death, the Triple Espresso, whatever one you want to use. They have the potential to even continue to improve. But then you add into that Cario type player, Jaden Shaw, we saw Croy Bethune. These are players who can elevate that and provide depth. I think that's the other thing when you look at this team specifically. There aren't a lot of key players, if not maybe two, that won't be returning for the next tournament, right? You're probably not having Nair as a starter. We'll see. She keeps defying age, but I think that's a question. And then Lynn Williams is unlikely to be a true contributor going forward, and that's just, again, an age question. We'll see. I think you have to look at also Rose Lavelle and Lindsay Horan and say, for Lindsay Horan, she had a not great tournament.
Yeah,
I think that's fair. So that was, I think, a lot of people who have been hating on her for a while will feel justified. But these people also seem to think that European leagues are better, and Lindsay's a leader for one of the best European clubs. So I don't know, John, the math ain't math in there. Yeah. But I think Horan and Lavelle have a lot more that they need to prove, because there's a lot of talent behind them. And I think that, to me, is the question I have coming out of this: is where do we plug in the young, talented players to make this team even better than what it was we saw this past 3 weeks?
At Barnabas Prime 19 at Soccer for US POD, hanging out with us as he always does to start hour number 2 on a Monday. You bring up an interesting point, because this is what caught the U.S. women's national team in the past, is that transition from the established stars to the young players that deserved that chance that we all know at the time, insert player that you want to reference here, that deserved the opportunity, but they were roadblocked by the older established players. And so you don't have as many of those coming out of this particular tournament and heading down the road, but you still have those players, big name players, that have done your program well over time. And now, you have a new coach that's a part of this. And so this dynamic is something that we're going to have to navigate and see how Emma Hayes handles Lindsey Horan, Rose Lavelle, new players, old guard, that kind of a thing. So you're out of this tournament, but that seems to be, I think, one of her first challenges here.
So I think one thing you have to understand, John, and as you know, the circumstances are different now. And I don't think we changed and adapted to this new circumstances quickly enough. Yeah. Where before this period of time, really since before 2020, the U.S. women, because of their CBA with U.S. Soccer directly, bringing in new players was hard. Because the way they had their CBA structured rewarded longevity, rewarded consistency in player call-up, because if you added new players and they got enough call-ups, then they all of a sudden started getting paychecks as well. So that's one of the benefits of the new CBA, where they're not getting paid a salary, basically, right? That was the issue. So now that you don't have the salary structure, or even this subsidy structure with U.S. Soccer and NWSL, you do have the ability to bring in players whenever you feel like it, right? You should be exploring the depths of talent in NWSL. And again, that is deeper than any league in the world. So Emma has her job cut out for her, because she needs to actually do some scouting,
Curtains, baby.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit that, you got to go do some recruiting, to go do some scouting. You've got a Lily Johannes that you still got to convince that she needs to play for the U.S. women. You got some other players in NWSL, some of them brought in, but, even a girl like Hal Hirschfeld, who wasn't truly part of the team, didn't get the medal, even though she was on the team. Those are players, and there's more. I mean, we saw Emily Sams, but there's other center backs in this league that probably need to get looks as well. Right backs and left backs. I mean, I think left back is a question. So Emma now has the ability to use camps going forward to actually explore the depths of the player pool. And I think that's something that other coaches either haven't been able to do for legal reasons, we'll just put it that way, or in Vlatko's case, didn't do a good enough job at actually turning over every stone to find the depth.
It's going to be interesting with that going forward and seeing how this gets navigated. I know that a lot of folks going into this tournament, they looked at the Alex Morgan omission, and they were like, but she was on the commercial, promoting things. But yeah, the Alex Morgan, I'm sure that a lot of folks initially were surprised by the Alex Morgan omission, but you saw what Emma Hayes saw in the attack and having the talent that was on hand. And to your point, it is going to be an embarrassment of riches, I think, for Emma Hayes over the next handful of years, because of all of the young talent that's here. And just happens to be local, Hirschfeld, Croy Bethune, just saying. And all right, sidebar, the not getting the damn medal for being on the roster, that bugs the hell out of me. I mean, I know that, like, in the past, if you were the manager of the team that won the gold in baseball, you didn't get a medal. But the fact that you're on the roster, but you're a reserve or whatever the terminology is, that just bugs the hell out of me that you don't get a medal.
Well, John, there's a lot of things we should change about the Olympic soccer tournament. That might be one of them, because why do you have alternates when you just have a squad of 23 players?
Expand your roster.
Jane Campbell and Hal Hirschfeld did not get medals because they never appeared on an actual match day roster. They were alternates, but they were never fully rostered. Whereas some of the other alternates, like Croy Bethune and Emily Sands, made match day rosters, so they got a medal. But Hirschfeld and Campbell didn't. So I think that would be just the easiest solution, is just make it a 23-player roster. And you should also increase the field to 16, like you do on the men's side. If anything, the men should only be a 12-person tournament. But that's
but we can't expand the women's tournament to 16 because of the costs involved. What an unmitigated bunch of what?
Yeah,
horse-ish. We can't expand the tournament to 16. The hell you can't.
But we let Australians break dance, but we can't let more soccer teams in.
Oh, that was another thing that annoyed the hell out of me, among other things. When you look at Marta and her legacy, I guess, what would you consider to be her legacy in the sport? I mean, she did get her swan song, even with her 2-match suspension. Brazil makes it to the last match. But when you think of Marta, what comes to mind?
Marta is someone who brought beauty to a game that for the longest time was dominated by grit and ruggedness. I think she single-handedly showed that women, South American women, can and should be able to play soccer. And I think you just look at her longevity. I mean, 2007, she gets the silver at the World Cup, and then she gets the silver in 2024 at the Olympics. That's it's a long career, John. That's 17 years?
17 years.
And that's just between medaling at tournaments. And I think she has shown she's brought Joga Benito, she's brought the beautiful game to the women's side of things. People want to credit Spain for doing that. No, Spain doesn't deserve any credit. Congrats, Barcelona. You figured out that you could allow women to play soccer. Marta was doing Marta was doing all these, the flair, the inspirational, before any of that. And I think that is something that the game will not just miss, but be thankful for a long time, because I think Marta redefined how women's soccer can and should be played.
What other takeaways do you have from the 5-ring circus in Paris? Good, bad, indifferent, ugly. What else sticks in your mind from the tournament?
Well, I do want to talk about the men's team for a second, because I think there's this narrative like, oh, well, men's soccer crapped at the Olympics. And I'm like, this was not a team that was supposed to medal. Like, this team achieved probably what you expected it, but there was no real expectation for it to achieve more. And I think if you're the U.S. men's program, you need to reevaluate, how do you build that Olympic team, and how do you convince some of your better players to be a part of it? Because I think it's very clear overage players of Miles, Georgie, and Walker weren't the difference makers that you needed in a tournament like this.
Some of them you kind of had to play. I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think legitimately Miles and Walker having to play at center back is the problem. You need to figure out how are you, finding better young center backs. But I think if you're the men's program, you have to look at how do you build a better Olympic roster. If you look at the tournaments as a whole, I think, as we discussed, you need to increase the women's side to 16 teams. It just makes sense. And I think also when you look at the women's tournament and really the men's too, is the downtime in between games is too short. It's almost dangerous to have people playing with only 2 days of rest like this. Soccer is one of those sports where you do need a full several days of recovery. A lot of other sports, you don't need that. That's just the reality. Or your recovery time is just so much shorter. Basketball, volleyball, these other team sports, you can do that. But in soccer, you need a lot of downtime to recover because you need a full day to let your body. You just ran for 90 minutes. Your body needs to physically recover. And I think that's something that as we go forward, you do have to also then wonder, and this is something that, hey, we just won our 5th, so I love it. But does the women's tournament need to be a fully overage tournament? Does this format work? And do you want to continue to prioritize the Women's World Cup? Or something that I've seen on Twitter that I fully agree, I think futsal should be part of the Olympics as well. Absolutely. I think I would rather that than, I think that would be great. And by the way, our women's futsal team would probably do pretty well there because we properly support it. Mm-hmm. That would be something I would actually love to see, is how do you get futsal at the Olympics? Because it's a similar but so unique and different sport from, the outdoor game. And also, look, no matter how you count them, the U.S. won the most golds, the most medals. And despite what other people want to say, China didn't get the job done. We did. I mean, we won by 35, I think 30 some medals. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not a real competition. Let's be real honest. But it makes us feel good. And that's what matters. And the fact that we had multiple U.S. teams contribute to that medal count, teams, not individuals, but teams contribute to that medal count, is really awesome.
And you saw a lot of different sports getting the medals that were attached that were atypical medaling opportunities for the United States. I mean, you're seeing it in cycling, you're seeing it in canoe, just all over the place. You're seeing, and there were ones where you were anticipating a medal and didn't get it because of the competition increasing. Water polo on the women's side.
And that, I think, again, is I think people need to understand why the U.S. is so dominant at these sports. And it comes down to one thing and one thing only, John. The NCAA.
Okay.
Maybe not one thing and one thing only. But I think the U.S. benefits greatly from having collegiate athletics. And we take that for granted a lot. And we also don't support a lot of the non-football and basketball, sports in the Olympic or in the NCAA. But we have collegiate water polo. We have collegiate rifle shooting. We have collegiate gymnastics. We have all these sports at the collegiate level. And so if you're looking to watch Pommel Horse Guy,
yes,
he's competing in men's gymnastics. If you're looking to support, who was another one that we had? There's tons of track and field people who are where they are because they were able to compete in NCAAs. Don't be afraid to go out and support those sports. They're called non-revenue sports for a reason, but you can still support them by going to a game and paying the $5 to $10 it takes to get in. And we have, unfortunately, here in the U.S. and Georgia, we don't have as many top flight men's soccer programs, but we do have one at Georgia State. Georgia Tech doesn't have either soccer program, but you can go support them and catch a game. So
there's your list right here. And it's an excellent unintentional plug of Soccer's in Session, by the way, because here's the list of all of the programs in the state of Georgia, all the conferences that are represented, men's and women's. You've got everything from Albany State as an HBCU that has a women's soccer program in the Peach Belt in Division II. You've got NAIA, multiple conferences in the NAIA. You have to your thought, all the Division Ones in the Fun Belt, and the SEC and all these other places. And so, yes,
Sun Belt needs to step its game up because right now it's being dominated by two mountain teams. Just plug that in there. Marshall and West Virginia bringing soccer to the South.
Yeah. So I mean, hey. South's got something to say, and it just so happens that West Virginia's included. But yeah, we're going to be making the rounds and catching up with a lot of these programs. Some have already started their summer fall season. Some are holding off until Labor Day, but we're going to try and catch up with as many of them as humanly possible to let everybody know what's going on when it comes to soccer's in session. What's going on with soccer for you, SPOD?
We're recording either tonight or tomorrow, depending on when our availability is, to brag and boast and celebrate the fact that men won a 5th gold medal. If you want analysis from this particular show, this is probably not it. Because at some point you just have to look. You can analyze and do all the XG and the X post shot expected goal and the all these metrics. Or you can just go, we frickin' won. Let's celebrate.
Well, and I think that there's going to be a different word than frickin' on your show. Maybe, possibly. There you go.
I won't blow that. I haven't blown the explicit rating yet. I haven't used too bad of words.
Oh. That was the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about before you get out of here. It was, let me see if I can find it. Apparently, and it has to do with our friends in Canada Soccer. Let me see if I can find it quickly before you get out of here. And I know I don't want to get you in trouble with the real world. Okay. So, and this happened once again on the weekend in the news dump from our friends at Canadian Soccer Daily. MP asks Heritage Committee to summon Priestman, Herdman to testify before Parliament over the Canada Soccer drone scandal. So, Ottawa obviously paying attention, with everything with the boycott back in Vancouver in 2022. Then President Nick Bontis and the CSA board had the players in getting called to testify. Now, with the drone scandal, NDP Member of Parliament Nikki Ashton put forward a motion calling the leaders of Canada's national women's soccer team and Canada Soccer to testify before the House of Commons Heritage Committee. Quote, this goes far beyond this one incident, and it even goes beyond the women's soccer team. This is about Canada's reputation in soccer and about Canada's reputation in sport, the Manitoba MP, Member of Parliament, said in an interview with CBC. We as members of Parliament and Canadians deserve to know how we ended up in this situation, more importantly, how we can fix it. We need to make sure that at the highest level, we're making it clear that you win because of the hard work. You don't win from cheating, from spying, and then not tarnishing other people's reputations. That's not what soccer is about. That's not what sport is about. That's not what Canada is about. And so Ashton wants Priestman, Jasmine Mander, analyst Joey Lombardi, and John Herdman to be called to testify before the Heritage Committee per Ashton's motion. And so a Manitoban member of Parliament is calling for folks to come to Ottawa so you can be talked to and grilled by members of Parliament. That's how mad folks are right now.
Well,
you're going to be officially mad now if you're getting called to Parliament Hill.
I can't argue with the members of Parliament who want real answers about what happened. Because first off, if you're looking just at the women's team, then you're looking in the wrong spot, because clearly this has been institutionalized at Canada Soccer as a whole. So you need to call in the men's team and maybe the coach of the leading professional men's soccer team in the country. We jokingly say, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of truth to that, about everyone in this sport is in some way, shape, or form gaining an unfair advantage over their teams, their opponents. But I think the problem what you're seeing here is this is more about invading the sacred and private spaces of teams. And you own to film practice is very different than hiding out in the woods with a walkie-talkie and some binoculars. And I think that's where this all comes down, is that this was an egregious and quite honestly shameful overstep of what you even consider within the ethical gray areas of sporting competition.
Do you think that this is actually going to happen, or was this Nikki Ashton, a member of Parliament, just sitting here and taking her?
No, I mean, I feel like, I mean, it's obviously the U.S. We have one party who calls a damn investigation into anything that they just don't like, but this does need to be investigated or at least questioned, because you need to figure out, is this something that, as I said, this is about a national embarrassment, but this is also something that, like, when you look at it, you need to understand, is this something that's happening in all Canada sports? How is this, how is government money, because Canada Soccer does get some level of government funding.
Yeah.
And so if any sort of government money was put forth to cheat like this, that's going to be a problem as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this is something that probably does need to be investigated. I would want this to be investigated by U.S. Congress if something like this happened as well. But, what it actually leads to, who knows? But there's a lot of questions that they definitely want to get answers to.
On Parliament Hill, we'll see if it happens. As always, my friend, thanks for dropping by on Monday after a busy weekend on a bunch of different levels that came at the end of it by adding number 5 to the whole thing. And still folks that were alternate.
We don't have soccer for like 2 weeks, John. What are we going to do?
Oh, well, we got soccer. I mean, you what's your mug, sir? Yeah, see, we got soccer.
We'll have U.S. soccer for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we got soccer. We got plenty.
We got U.S. soccer for a couple weeks.
No, we got plenty to talk about.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun.
We
have Premier League starting, and that'll be something we'll start. We'll talk about in our next episode. Is kind of previewing that season for our guys and gals in Europe. We're at an inflection point, I think, for U.S. soccer right now. I think you got renewed faith in the women's team. You got some excitement and questions about the men's team. Hopefully we get a coach before September.
Yeah.
There's going to be some news coming out. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Be well, my friend. And hopefully I didn't get you in trouble with the real world. We'll catch up with you soon.
Y'all have a great Monday.
All right. That's Bart. And so Bart's going to go continue finishing his second cup of coffee on his with his Arsenal mug as he gets ready for the Premier League. And we continue to go there. There was some other news that has come across, and it's more player movement. It's not necessarily, well, I guess I can't just sit there and not do something, because, I kind of have to, I have to make sure that we're consistent when it comes to all of our programming. So we'll go here. You hit a button, and it's a Monday. I'll just say that. I'll explain what happened just a second ago. All right. There are no such things, I think, as left-handed mouses for computers. So what I have done is I've kind of adapted actually, this isn't breaking news, so I'll hit the breaking news sounder in a second. All right, I'm going to pause it. All right, so story time with John here in the studio. With mouses for computers being for right-handed folks and me being left-handed, technically I'm ambidextrous. But I like to use the mouse with my left hand, and I'll write with my right hand during the show and take notes. So the mouse that I have, it's on my left hand, and when I hit, there's a button on the mouse that starts everything back over, turns it into a reset and everything. So what I did was I hit that button, and it bumps me out of the studio because I'm an idiot. And so what happens is I dump, and then I've got to come back into the studio. So what happened was I hit that button, and it exited me out of the studio. Plain and simple. But that's because it's a right-handed mouse with right-handed knobs And if you hit one of the knobs, then the whole thing just kind of goes kerplooey. So that's what just happened. Anyway, so back to the breaking news. All right, it's from New England, and New England is getting things done with their window. They've acquired Nigerian central midfielder from Royal Antwerp, Al-Hassan Yusuf. From Royal Antwerp, undisclosed fee, 24-year-old using season-ending injury replacement mechanism. He's a TAM-eligible player, occupying an international roster spot, signed through the 27 season, club option for 28. He'll join the Revs pending the receipt of his P1 visa and his international transfer certificate. 3 years at Royal Antwerp, 3 trophies, including the Belgian Pro League Championship, Belgian Cup, named club's player of the month in August of 22. Champions League, played in all 6 games for Antwerp, a goal in his first start against Porto, assist against Barcelona. Paragraph from Curdinalfo, a couple of sentences that made up a paragraph anyway. Started at Göteborg from 18 to 21. Göteborg signed him to a professional contract as a teenager, 77 appearances in the Swedish First Division. So 24-year-old defensive midfielder, 200 senior appearances in Belgium and Sweden. So he goes from Göteborg to Royal Antwerp, and at 5'9", 145, the 24-year-old has transferred for an undisclosed fee from Royal Antwerp. So that is that's the news from player transfers this morning when it comes to Major League Soccer. Remember, we have until Wednesday to get things sorted out for all the clubs in Major League Soccer. So now the other news that I wanted to get into this morning, a lot of it coming from our friend Ben Jacobs across the pond. And so Ben is a must follow at Jacobs Ben, by the way. And he's got a lot of the up-to-date transfer news and all that kind of stuff. So Ben, this morning, Samu Amorodion's move to Chelsea currently off following late complications. An announcement on the Conor Gallagher deal delayed to allow the Amorodion transfer to be finalized. The Gallagher deal remains on as it stands. Julian Alvarez has traveled as planned. And so now the pictures are being made with Julian Alvarez and his ATLUTD jersey. All parties now urgently working on a solution. One option is Joao Felix returning to Chelsea. According to Fabrizio Romano, ATLUTD need to outgoing to finance Alvarez. Jorge Mendes is in London traveling for the Pedro Neto announcement. 6 minutes ago, ATLUTD confirmed that Alvarez has joined from Manchester City, €75 million plus a €20 million package, signing a 6-year deal. So that's on. Chelsea's Diego Moreira closing in on a permanent Strasbourg move for around $2 million with a buyback. Transfer leaves the loan spot to Strasbourg open. Chelsea still keen to send Georgi Petrovic there. So Strasbourg, and they released the actual signing of the contract and video this morning in the handshake of Caleb Wiley in the Strasbourg front office. So it looks like Wiley from Chelsea to Strasbourg, Moreira on a permanent to Strasbourg. Chelsea still keen on sending Georgi Petrovic to Strasbourg with the beginning of the Ligue 1 season coming up this weekend. So very, very busy involving Georgi Petrovic and all of the movement of the deck chairs within the Chelsea multi-club system from Chelsea to Strasbourg. Also, it looks like Newcastle made a third offer for Mark Gahey, according to Keith Downey at Sky. Bids closer to Crystal Palace's £65 million valuation. Gahey is keen on the move. Ipswich have an interest in Calvin Phillips. Manchester City's open to offers. Genoa set to sign Brooke Norton-Cuffy for an initial £2 million, another $2 million in add-ons. Fees all agreed, given permission to undergo a medical this week. Matthijs de Ligt and Nusser Mazraoui both are now at Carrington for their Manchester United medicals. We mentioned Ryan Lowe leaving Preston North End. Mikey Moore signs his first professional contract with Spurs after turning 17 on Sunday. Moore's future was never in doubt despite links to PSG and Real Madrid. Earlier this morning, Joao Felix keen on returning to Chelsea. Villa are aware of his preference. Talks ongoing with a deal for around €50 million possible. And so once again, Chelsea could give a route back for Joao Felix back to Stamford Bridge. Amorodion currently being offered to several clubs, including Bournemouth, Villa, and Leverkusen. Bournemouth and Villa haven't initiated the contract, aren't currently working on a deal. Leverkusen held an interest prior to Chelsea, agreeing to a fee with Atletico. West Ham and Al Ahly are still in talks over Kurt Zuma. Deals agreed to, but the medical highlighted a pre-existing knee issue, leading to further talks. Still a willingness to get the move done. The Amorodion deal, terms not fully agreed despite a $40 million fee with Atleti in place. And Chelsea, once again, now looking to sign maybe Joao Felix as a part of all of that deal. De Ligt and Mazraoui both on their way. De Ligt deals with 45-5. Mazraoui is 15-5 with Aaron Wan-Bissaka leaving for West Ham. Deadline for registration. And Thursday at midday to be eligible for selection to Fulham. We mentioned Samu Amorodion, and Atleti was prepared to sanction a sale. Let's see. Desiree Doué expect to make a decision on his future this week. PSG already made their pitch via Nasser Al-Khelaifi. Bayern pushing hard as well. Both bids to Rennes in the similar numbers. So we'll see what happens there. That is gossip, rumor, and innuendo with all of that. Let's see. What was the other? There were a couple of other things. Oh, one had to do with the women's team, because Bart mentioned the women's team and the Women's Super League, and that got me chasing after a story that Catherine Batt referenced in her line of sight. She does work for the four-letter paper covering West Ham, the WSL, and the Lionesses. So she had a link to a story, and it's in the Sunday Times about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what he's trying to do when it comes to his investments for Manchester United. And in the interview, it came up about the women's team. And here's what Ratcliffe said about the women's team and Carrington. And it's the old song says, "Let me clear my throat." Here, hang on just a second. All right, so Sir Jim Ratcliffe was asked about all of the renovations going on at Carrington. So, article from the Sunday Times, he's already stumped up tens of millions for much needed renovations at Old Trafford. As part of the refurbishments, the women's squad were relocated to portable cabins to make way for the men's first team, a move that drew criticism. Ratcliffe described the arrangement as pragmatic, in quotation marks, and lasting only while work was carried out at the Carrington Training Center, adding, quote, "The men's team make £800 million. The women's team cost £10 million. An NEO spokesman said, quote, "We've invested £10 million in the women's facility, and they'll be back as soon as the $50 million revamp of Carrington is complete." So the women's team has been relocated to portable cabins, I'm guessing in our vernacular here on this side of the Atlantic, it's trailers. So Ratcliffe, the men's team make £800 million. The women's team costs $10 million. I don't think that won him many friends. So the article is in the business section of the Times if you want to read more about what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has done for Manchester United. And it was written this past weekend by Nick Rufford. And it's a deep dive into Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his business interests and Ineos and all of that, plus what he's doing at Manchester United. So that might be your required reading would be going to the Sunday Times into the business section to learn more about Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Also on the board this morning, a couple of things. One from our friends at Yosemar Football. And once again, it has to do with an investigation. And once again, if you're into soccer investigations, then this is the place for you. They do fantastic work. So the new article by Yosemar Football titled "White Elephants and Green Lies." And they have basically everybody on the story. Auclair, Brown, Kerr, Kunti, Maneri. 5 reporters on this story from FIFA and all of the tournament. So That was the headline. Gianni Infantino boasted that the World Cup in Qatar would be the greenest ever. It turns out that the 22 tournament was the dirtiest in history. Infantino had promised that they aim to make the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 carbon neutral. Video posted June 5th of 2022, coinciding with World Environment Day. As a signatory of the UN Convention on the Climate Change of Sports for Climate Action Framework, whose stated ambition is to achieve net zero by 2040, World Football's governing body would actually be ahead of that timetable if it managed to organize the first ever carbon neutral global sports event. According to FIFA's assessment, Qatar had, quote, pledged to mitigate and offset all of the tournament's greenhouse gas emissions while advancing low-carbon solutions in Qatar and in the region, end quote. Preliminary analysis done by carbon finance consultancy South Pole at the behest of organizers in FIFA estimated Qatar's World Cup would generate a total of 3.6 megatons of CO2, 1.5 megatons more than Russia in 2018, the equivalent of the amount of greenhouse gases emitted by Iceland over a whole year. Took into account the emissions generated by construction, included building from scratch the 7 stadia. Not everyone was convinced by South Pole's math. World was assured that plans were in place to make sure the colossal zero waste, or so it was claimed, this is the wording from the article, venues built to welcome players and fans would not be left to rot in the sun, as so many reminders of the 21st century sports succumbing to folie de grandeur, a ruinous white elephant's graveyard. 2 of the stadia, Al Janoub and Amak bin Ali, would be resized in order to accommodate Qatar Stars League clubs. Another put at disposal of the Qatari women's national team. Then 974, which was built using disused containers, totally dismantled and offered free to another nation. And so you have all of the explanations and all of the stadia that are still hanging around. They get into Stadium 974 and its disposable nature. Construction of 974 generated more CO2 emissions than any other 2022 World Cup project, given the technical difficulties which had to be overcome. Dutch journalist Maximilian Rieger managed to set foot on the site December of 23, saw scanners wrapped in plastic film still standing where they'd been used by Qatari security to screen visiting fans a year before. It's supposed to be used for training purposes, but whether this has happened or not is unknown. Question was put to the Qatar Supreme Committee. Plans for the postseason tournament of use of Stadium 974 are still being assessed and will be announced in due course. So all of the credits, the carbon credits, to claim carbon neutrality, you purchase a carbon credit. If you say a project will cause emissions of a certain number of tons of CO2, all that you need to do is invest in carbon offsetting ventures intended to trap the same amount of greenhouse gases. And now environmental agencies are highly skeptical, not to say dismissive, about the true worth of carbon credits. So there's a mention of a tree and turf farm, and in July of 24, said tree and turf farm probably is at about 1/4 or 1/5 of its effectiveness when it was during the tournament. And so you end up also having FIFA going to court over the whole thing. So required reading from our friends at Yosemar Football, if you subscribe, is where the tournament in Qatar looks like it was the dirtiest in history, according to our friends at Yosemar Football. No real surprise. Also, that I had on my list this morning, Anson Dorrance retired, or is announcing his retirement effective immediately. and so Anson Dorrance, after 43 years, is leaving the University of North Carolina. And there are a couple of different thoughts on that. We'll get into that in a sec. Quick reminder, another piece of breaking news quickly. Sporting director George Heitz today announced he'll depart Chicago Fire following the conclusion of the 24 season for personal reasons. Kansas City current and midfielder Claire Lavage have mutually agreed to terminate their contract. Lavage is now free to pursue an opportunity with Real Sociedad Femenino and Spanish Liga F. Now, yesterday, when Anson Dorrance announced that he was leaving the University of North Carolina with all of the building that he has done in the state of, at the University of North Carolina. So Dorrance announces, and I know that we've got to go, and it'll be really quickly, but apparently a large article came out where Anson Dorrance, once again, announces his retirement after 45 years, I believe. According to the University of North Carolina at Go Heels, 21 NCAA championships, retiring after 45 seasons directing the women's soccer program at the University of North Carolina. Dorrance informed A.D. Bubba Cunningham of his intention to retire on Friday, August the 9th, told the team Sunday afternoon. Press conference with Chancellor Lee Roberts, A.D. Bubba Cunningham, and Anson Dorrance is set for 2 o'clock this afternoon at the Dean Smith Center. They open their regular season August 15th at the University of Denver. Damon Nahas is going to lead the team this season as an interim head coach, and Bubba Cunningham is going to direct a national search. And I need to find the article, and this may also fall into required reading. So give me a second, and I will see if I can find it quickly just to reference what we were seeing with Dorrance. And it comes from our friends at the Assembly NC, theassemblync.com. Matt Hartman, in late May, produced an article about Dorrance, and it gives a lot of background into what has been seen with Anson Dorrance over the last handful of years. Back-to-back frustrating season enders already raising questions when the Daily Tar Heel reported 21 players from the 2023 roster were leaving. 9 of them transferred, 11 went pro, another went to a non-soccer career, then 3 of the 7 expected rookies for 24 opted to go pro instead. 3 coaches have left in the past 2 years. One, Alex Kimball, exited after only a few months as a coach following a university investigation into allegations she was dating a player. Kimball said she did not date the player, did nothing wrong. The Assembly interviewed 8 former players who were on the team in recent years or have remained close to it, most of whom have spoken anonymously because of Dorrance's influence in the soccer world. Though some said they had good experiences with the program, others described a high-pressure system that they said isn't supporting all of its young athletes, to the detriment of their well-being and their winning record that made Dorrance and USC women's soccer famous. Dorrance said in a statement that he cares about all of his players and has worked every day for 48 years at Carolina to make their college experience the best it can be. Anson Dorrance at 73. Press conference later today. We'll probably get into this more tomorrow as we go. Another quick note before we go. It is Joaquin Pereira. Looks like it's officially official. Leaving Atletico Tucumán for Minnesota United. Tucumán sold 70% of the transfers, so they hold on to 30% going forward. Once the visa and the international trade certificate are in, travel to have a medical checkup, signing until December of 2027. So that comes from Cesar Luis Merlo, Joaquin Pereira to Minnesota United after everything is signed on the line that is dotted. We can see what will happen there. Today, what to watch, where to watch it, all of that before we go. And we do have lower division activity in England that will happen later this afternoon. And you can watch that. So today, It's really quick. Got a couple of matches, and then we have Libertadores and Sudamericana. We'll catch up with Dino Torres about that on Thursday. Today, real light. Being in Espanol, 2 o'clock, Turkish Super League, Rizespor and Başakşehir here. That's at 2. Season Pass has Leagues Cup late night, so you'll have Leagues Cup after dark with Pumas and Seattle at 10:30. Then 3 o'clock on Golazo Network in the championship, Luton Town and Burnley, 2 of the teams that were relegated last year from the Premier League, squaring off at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So you have all of that activity today, and we didn't get into the twos a whole lot. So later today, probably within the hour, twos review gets posted. You can listen to the highlights. We'll show the highlights tomorrow. You get to hear from Steve Cook, Caden Moore, and Nick Firmino. And you get to hear the highlights of the 2-1 win as the win streak for Atlanta United 2 has reached 3 matches. And you can go to our Mixler site. You can go back and listen to the match and some of the pregame show. And you can listen all the way through with the match with me, Maddie, Jarrett, and Daniel Russo. And we're posting the interview with Daniel Russo from halftime, posting that to the app as well. So pretty full day on a bunch of different fronts, but we'll probably get more into Anson Dorrance tomorrow. And we are chasing our friends from Soda City after they have won a tournament, the UPSL tournament that Jason called in Pittsburgh. Soda City, they were the 3 coming out of their conference, and they had a magical run to win a title. They beat Inland Empire yesterday at Highmark in Pittsburgh to be the UPSL champs. And so we're trying to track down Soda City and see if they can hop on the show with us tomorrow, and we'll look at everything there as well. Chasing colleges, chasing USL Super League, chasing a lot of different stories and a lot of different folks, and we'll be back at it again in a little less than 22. Thanks for putting up with everything here on the SDH Network. Let me say hi to everybody before we get out of here. It is hi to Ricardo, and hi to Heath, hi to Harry, and we're going to be eliminating our buddy Dr. M. Crazy because he's a bot. Morning, Alex. Morning, Abby. And let's see. Morning, Unk. Morning, Jay Lesniak. I think Jay Lesniak is new. And once again, thanks to Alex, as always. So thanks to all of you guys for hanging out, and thanks to Derek, who's been lurking all morning. Nothing wrong with lurking, Derek. We always like that. So back at it again tomorrow morning, 9:05. You can listen to the replay. We're going to chop up some of the segments, and we'll have those posted to the app as well. So for everybody here at SDH, I'm just John. Thanks for dropping by, as we always do. It is now time to whistle us out on a Monday that, of course, had me and technical problems. So play it safe, everybody. We'll see you in a little less than 22. Time to whistle us home.